Hello, you've reached Gloria with Farmstead Talk, and I am here today with Susan from the Lucky Star Farm, and she is representing her state of Iowa today in this homesteading interview. Welcome, Susan, and thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Gloria.
So anyways, let's go ahead and get started. You want to share, first of all, where the folks can find you on social media?
Sure. You can find my website at www.theluckystarfarm.com. And on my website, you can also find a button to find us on Instagram and Facebook. It might be fun to give it a peek.
Okay, great. So tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about where you're living and your family makeup.
Okay. I live on a farm outside of Iowa City, Iowa. Iowa City has about 75,000 people. We're located on the eastern portion of the state. Iowa City is mostly known for the University of Iowa and the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics. So we have a lot of students here, as well as a lot of people involved in education and healthcare. We have a lot of people that care about their food and really support local food, which is great for small farmers such as myself. Our farm is a 20-acre farm. It is, we've had it about 9 years now. We moved here in 2011. I have 4 children. We homeschooled for about 10 years, most of those years here at Lucky Star Farm. 3 of my 4 children now are in college or beyond, and I have 1 child left here in high school. My husband, I have a husband, he has a full-time job off the farm. So when I have him in my midst, I like to get my hooks in him, and he is really handy at helping out with little projects here and there.
Nice, very nice. So tell me a little bit about the name behind Lucky Star Farm. How did you come up with that?
Well, before we moved to the farm, we lived in a place out in the woods, and it was beautiful, but it was completely surrounded by trees, and it was green and lush, but we rarely saw the sky. So when we moved here to the farm, one of the first things we noticed was how much sky we could see. And then among our first nights here, we looked up and realized, wow, there are so many stars in the sky. We didn't really ever notice how many stars there were. And so we felt like star needed to be somehow in the name. And we just felt really lucky. We felt like we had sort of come into this property in kind of a special way, and that it was meant to be. So it all came together.
The name is very well fitted. Yeah. So on your farm, tell me about the type of animals that you currently have.
All right. Currently we have about a few more over 100 laying hens that are tucked away right now in their coop because it's about 5 degrees right now here in Iowa. I often have turkeys ahead of Thanksgiving, so they have left the farm right now. I have a herd of about 12 female Nigerian dwarf goats and a couple of bucks. And I have 5 llamas.
Okay. So let's go back to the chickens real quick. So what type of breeds do you have?
I have kind of a variety of breeds. Back in the day when we first started, my daughters liked the really cute birds, and as it became more apparent that people really wanted local farm fresh eggs, we had to up our game a bit, and we switched from maybe really cute birds to birds that were more production birds.
Right.
So we sort of alternate. I try and get breeds on an every other year sort of basis, so that I know after a couple of years, oh, that was the year that I got all of the Rhode Island Reds, and so then I know maybe the Rhode Island Reds are on their way off the farm. I think mostly right now I have production Reds, I have some Barred Rocks, I have a few Buff Orpingtons, and some Delawares and Brahmas. I have those in a coop closer to my house, so when people come to learn about birds, about chickens, they can visit the more docile sort of, hardy birds that live near the house. And then in the coop that I have that travels around the pasture, where the bulk of my laying flock is, a lot of those birds are more the production reds and the black sexlings and the more, heavy duty producers.
So you said you cycle your chickens out like every other year. So then do you replace your whole flock, and then do you dispatch those hens?
What I usually do is I'm usually on an every 2-year cycle. So, when those hens hit about 2 years, I typically, put an ad on Craigslist for them for, I don't advertise them as laying hens anymore, but there are often enough people that want a hen for stewing or what have you. They'll come buy it live off my farm for a nominal price. And then that money in turn I can put back into chicks that year that I can raise up to replace those in the flock. So every year I'm usually transitioning in new birds.
Okay, good. And so what type of turkeys, what breeds of turkeys do you raise?
Mm-hmm. I usually have 2 different flocks of turkeys. I have a flock of turkeys that are heritage birds, meaning they can reproduce on their own. They're more slow growing. I think the last 2 or 3 years I have had bourbon reds. I've liked those birds a lot. They're pretty hardy. They grow well. They forage well. They're pretty tame, and they pluck really cleanly. They make a really nice bird for the table for Thanksgiving. So I've had bourbon reds for probably the last 3 years. And then I also have a flock of broad-breasted whites that grow, in half the time. So I start a flock in May of heritage birds, and I start a second flock of broad-breasted whites in about August. And then those 2 flocks are kept separately, but they're both pastured and they're both ready for harvest right before Thanksgiving.
Okay. And now I know you got the goats. Tell me how you came about the goat herd, and what made you decide on what type of goats you wanted to start off with.
Mm-hmm. Well, we knew that we wanted goats because we like to have things on the farm that are productive in some way. And so at that time, we've had them for about 5 or 6 years now. So at that time, all of my daughters were still home, and they were very interested in raising goats. And my 2 youngest daughters were also avid 4-H'ers. And so they wanted goats that they could show. So we had to come to some sort of, collective compromise on how we could check off all those boxes. And with a lot of research, we all decided that Nigerian dwarf goats would be the best for our homestead because they're, of course, smaller than other goats, and they're much easier to manage than full standard size goats. And also their milk is really rich and really delicious. So that's how we came into Nigerian dwarfs as our choice.
So tell me about the byproducts of the goats that you utilize for products that you're selling off the farm.
Mm-hmm. I milk each spring after the kids come. After about 2 weeks, I start milking most of the mamas, unless they have too many goats. Nigerian dwarfs are known for having 3, 4, 5 kids at a time. And so if I have a mama with quads, maybe I keep those kids with their mom. But otherwise, I start milking at about 2 weeks, and the milk, I'm unable to sell it as is. You can't sell milk in Iowa unless you have a licensed dairy. So we drink a lot of the milk ourselves, but we also make fresh yogurt. We make a lot of ice cream, and I make cheese, of course, and I make soap. I make a lot of bar soap for our own use, and I sell that to a lot of egg customers. I recently started making shampoo bars with goat milk soap. So those are curing right now. We'll see how those go.
Wow, nice. What a selection you have. And then you also do something very special too with the goats, your event that you do.
Yeah, of course.
Share that.
Yes, honestly, the most lucrative part of having these goats is goat yoga. And I my daughter suggested to me about 3 years ago, after seeing something on social media, Mom, we should really do something with these goats. We should have goat yoga. And I poo-pooed that whole idea, that it was just preposterous that people would do such a thing. But they were relentless. And so I said, all right, we can try one class. So we set up a tent, like a graduation tent in our yard. We put some fencing around it. I hired a willing friend who was an instructor, and we offered 20 tickets to this inaugural goat yoga class. And lo and behold, Gloria, within probably 15 minutes, the entire event was sold out. And so we offered another and another and another, and each and every one was sold out. And the amazing thing is that, people would come to one class, the first class, and of course there were selfies galore being taken. And as soon as people posted photos of themselves on social media doing goat yoga, boom, all of the tickets for the upcoming class would sell out, because people were just so over the moon excited to go hang out with goats. And so the next year we added more classes, up to 12 classes, and each and every time class sold out. And while it might sound a little bit silly, it is, I acknowledge that, but it was a great way to get people out into the country, out to see what small farms are all about, maybe to get an appreciation for dairy goats and other things that we have on the farm. And it helped just create a nice sense of community.
Yeah.
And all of that, and the goats then actually paid for all of their hay. In Iowa, we have to hay our animals about 6 months out of the year, and those goats were able to pay for all of the hay out in their barn. So, like I said, we like to have animals that earn their keep here, and so that's one way for those goats to help earn their keep.
Yeah.
And then after those, we offer classes for about 6 weeks or so. And at that time, at weaning time, most all those animals go to other farms as breeding livestock or show animals or pets for other farms. And so about Memorial Day, when all those animals are old enough to be weaned, off they go. And then our goat yoga emporium closes for the season.
I think that is so fabulous.
It's been really, really delightful.
Yeah, I think that, not only is it fun, it's a new experience for probably most people, but I think just being on the farm and being around animals is very healing for people.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think so. So it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
What about the llamas? Tell me about the llamas and what you're doing with the llamas.
Well, I got my first llama shortly after getting our small trio of goats. We don't have a high predator load here where we're located, thankfully, but they're small. These new goats are really small little creatures, and I felt compelled somehow to find a guardian for them. So I did some research and decided that a llama would probably be the easiest thing to integrate into the herd. So I found this lovely llama that came to me from a person who unknowingly would become one of my really great mentors and teach me a lot about being a llama owner. And she was lovely. I love her, and she took great care. But we felt like she needed a companion outside of her goat herd. So we found another llama who joined our herd, and she happened to be pregnant. And so, one became 3, and then our cria, he was a boy, and so he needed to be weaned from his mother and separated from the female herd. But of course, he couldn't be alone, so we needed to get him a buddy. And so, now 1 became 5, but again, everybody has their job. The llamas, we have a herd of all the female goats with the 2 female llamas in one pasture. And then we have our male goats and our male llamas in another pasture. And when it's time to start pasturing our turkeys, once they hit the age where they can leave the brooder and their heat source and start pasturing, we then pasture the turkeys within the llama paddock, because the llamas help us keep the turkeys safe from predators. The only predator experience, well, the most significant predator experience we've had has been with coyotes and our heritage turkeys. And they're very valuable birds, especially the closer you get to Thanksgiving. And so one year we had a fairly devastating attack by a pack of coyotes. And so we brainstormed the best way to keep them as safe as possible. And so that's where llamas came in handy again. They patrol the outside of the llamas, of the turkeys' poultry netting. The llamas walk the exterior of that, as well as they have their own perimeter fencing. So we've got a lot of lines of security keeping those birds safe, and the llamas definitely come into play in that situation. Also, llamas are really just super intriguing animals, and that's probably the second most popular thing that people love to visit when they come to the farm. Of course, they love to meet the goats, but they love to see the llamas. They're just such, unique, interesting creatures. And we've taken our llamas into story time into Iowa City for the library, just to give kids an opportunity to see llamas up close. We're going back to the library soon for a reader celebration. We've taken our llamas to a retirement community this past summer when they had a community night out in their parking area. So we try to get them out and about. For people who can't necessarily get to the farm, we like to take them out and just socialize them with people and give people an experience to see them up close.
Would you say that the care for them would be comparable to a horse, or no, or more like a goat?
I've never owned a horse, so I can't say, but my friends that come here that handle them with me make me feel like that horses are more difficult probably than llamas. I think llamas are fairly straightforward creatures. I think I would probably compare them more to a goat, like you suggested. They're really easy to pasture with goats because they eat basically the same thing. The hoof care is, basically the same. So they're just very similar in the requirements that they have.
And you had said before that you shear them annually. Is that mandatory? Is that something that is required for their care?
In most of the United States, yes. By the time, with Iowa, it gets so very hot in the summer, and like now it was below 0 last night. It gets very, very cold, so all the animals have to endure really extreme temperatures. And llamas, that coat that they wear is incredibly thick, and so usually by May we like to start shearing them once we know that the temperature has probably gotten into the safe zone where they're not going to be cold. We at the very least shear their barrel or all the way around them. Llamas cool off with their underbelly and in their leg pits, and so when we keep them cool, if we have a real hot snap in the winter, in the summer, I can go out and spray them on their undersides, or I can put out kiddie pools for them and they can cush or fold themselves into a kiddie pool to keep their bellies cool. And so we like to keep that part of them shorn so that they can cool off as readily as possible.
Wow, good information. Okay. let's switch hats up a little bit. I know that there's one other service that you offer at the farm that you just currently brought
Yeah.
to the surface
Yes.
with your Airbnb with the milk house. So go ahead and share a little bit about what you're offering with that.
Thanks. Yes, just yesterday, actually, we just launched a new venture here at Lucky Star Farm for 2020. It's called the Milk House at Lucky Star Farm, and the Milk House was built here on the farm, as best as we can tell, maybe around the 1950s, and it was a working milking parlor. It was no longer being used for a milking parlor when we moved here, but we thought the building itself was really interesting and told a really great story about not just our farm, but a lot of small farms in the Midwest. And so we tried to keep it structurally sound. We put a new roof on, and we tried to preserve it, not really knowing exactly what its purpose would be. And the more we had people come to the farm for goat yoga, or just to pay a visit, or to pick up their eggs or turkeys or what have you, we had so many people say, wow, it's really great being on a farm, or this is a really wonderful lifestyle. I have dreams of being on a small farmstead like this. And we started to feel like that we maybe had something really to offer people here. And, perhaps not everyone that dreams of being a small farmer is going to become a small farmer, but there's no reason that we can't offer them an opportunity to do that, if not even just for a weekend. Also, there are a lot of people that are really interested in knowing where their food comes from and interacting more directly with animals, or spending time planting trees. There are a lot of people that really want to get their hands dirty and learn a little bit more about the intricacies of those things. And so we felt like, okay, well, here's our purpose. Here's the purpose of our milk house. And so we worked, we only did demolition and painting. That was sort of the max of our skill set. But we worked with a really wonderful, creative contractor who helped us put our vision into plan, and he was really willing to help us find ways to integrate the pieces that were already there. Like if you were able to come, you would see that there are some stanchions still in place, and the concrete floors and the floor drains are still there. And the original beams are still showing, and actually all of the woodwork inside the building is repurposed from our barn. Different projects we've done on our barn that was originally here to the farm. What more? Oh, and the tin on the roof of our milk house, or the ceiling rather, is repurposed from when we re-roofed the goat lean-to. So we've tried to integrate as much reclaimed material as we can, because we strive to be sustainable. We strive to repurpose things that we have, and we're really excited about the way it has turned out, and we're really enthusiastic about the response so far that people have shown about the opportunity to come and stay. So I'm very excited to become an innkeeper. I'm excited to have people come here and stay and just share a little bit about what we do here. I also think once people become connected with something personally, they are more likely to want to preserve it. So I think the more people that learn about small farms and diverse farming and sustainable farming, the more invested they are in trying to support that and preserve that from their dollars and their votes and all the support they can give. So I hope it'll be a way to just educate people about different ways of farming, and to keep people supporting small, diverse farms.
Well, you're offering a wonderful opportunity. I think it was a brilliant idea, and you did a fabulous job with that. It's absolutely
Thanks.
beautiful. Really,
Thank you.
it looks very, very nice, very welcoming. So, tell me a little bit about silvopastures, what it means, and how folks can benefit from this practice, how it
Mm-hmm.
can benefit the land as well as the animals.
Mm-hmm. A few years ago, I pasture my birds. I pasture my chickens. They traveled down about a 2-acre pasture on the side of our house, surrounded by electro netting with a large mobile coop. And I I was concerned because every summer when it gets so hot, they don't leave their coop really. They go out to eat and drink and they hide back under the shade. And I thought, all right, this doesn't seem like the best conditions for them. They're on pasture because I know it's best for their health, um, and best for the eggs that they produce. But them being in their coop, so much of the time it didn't feel right to me. And so I started investigating how we can improve the welfare of their experience. And so I started reading more about planting trees, and then I came to learn more about silvopasturing, or you know planting trees out in their space so that they get the shade from the tree, but then also the trees benefit by getting the nutrients that the birds pass to the soil as they rotate through the pasture. Um, so I guess it's just a great way, that the trees in time will provide shade and perhaps fruit or nuts for the birds. We've planted a lot of chestnuts so far, and when spring comes again, we're working with our local NRCS to add more trees as well as more plants in the understories, like mulberries and other berries, so that the birds will benefit from those fruits as they fall, and the plantings will benefit from the nutrients that the animals add to the soil. We are hoping that kind of relationship, that symbiotic relationship, is beneficial to both the plants and the animals, and also to us as the caretakers of this land. In time, those chestnuts will be big enough and producing enough that people can harvest them. We're going to add other things, of course, to those plantings. We're working on planting rows down the hillside so that we can pass the chickens' portable shelter through. So we're going to add some hardwoods and other nuts as well, so that in time we'll have value-added crops that are planted in that pasture, and also hardwoods that in time can be thinned and harvested. A lot of these things we might not necessarily experience the fruits of ourselves, but for our children or the people that care for this land after us, we're hoping that we're helping regenerate the soil and provide better welfare for our livestock, and ways that future generations can also benefit from an increased quality of the land.
Yep. So you're using permaculture design and you're planning for the future. So you are being a very good land steward.
That's our goal.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can choose one farming or agricultural book that you would like to share that may be one of your favorites, what would that be?
Well, I really like the book Drawdown, that was created by Project Draw. And the thing I like about that book is it talks about a lot of different ways that we can all do things that can help combat climate change. And of course, those of us that have the opportunity to steward land, with that comes other opportunities and responsibilities for ways we can make choices with our land to help maybe slow climate change. And I was really excited when I first got that book to see that silvopasturing, I think, was ranked number 9 in ways that we can use the land to help sequester more carbon, to help slow climate change. And so, I think landowner or not, the book Drawdown is very interesting and really helps give you pause to think about choices that we make every day and things we can support that can make a difference.
If you can sum up in one word what your homesteading experience has meant to you, what would that be?
I think the one word I would choose is community. I think community for a lot of reasons. Community because the community has been incredibly supportive of our farm, which means the world to me. My community, a lot of my community comes from the customers that I have and the people that come out to support my farm. The other part of my community is made up of a lot of small farmers like me. A lot of farm women in Johnson County are a big part of my community. A lot of people in the local food scene here in Iowa City and Johnson County are part of my community. And I'm really proud that we can create a sense of community for people in the area, both near and far. And so I think in all ways, community is probably the word I would need to choose.
Thank you, Susan, so much for this interview today. I greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you. Have a great day.